meeting you right where you are on your foster care journey. This is the Forgotten Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Forgotten Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Cabe, and I am so happy to be with you. If you are part of the foster care community, passionate about serving, or simply interested in learning more, we are here for you. In every episode of this podcast, you're going to hear from men and women who've experienced foster care to one degree or another. They may have grown up in the system, are caseworkers or foster parents, or other people who are here to bring you hope and encouragement. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe and share with a friend. Remember, you are not alone. I hope you enjoy the Forgotten Podcast. Brandon and Cherith, I am so very happy to have you on the show today. I know you guys well because you serve with us as TFI Advocates in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it's always an extra special treat for me to have some of our own people on the show, but I am really excited for our listeners to get to know you as well. And in order to start here, I know God has given you a passion. In fact, Brandon, he made you aware really first of this whole foster care world. And I just want you to start there. Start with kind of how you first became aware of foster care and then how that moved into your family being part of this foster parenting.
So in 2006, we had a real estate company where different realtors worked together. And one of the realtors that was working with us had gotten involved in foster care, she and her husband and their children. And she began to tell me more about it. And for whatever reason, it just struck a chord with me and was something that, at least on the surface, was interesting to me. And so I printed out the paperwork from the DCFS, which is what we call it here in Baton Rouge, the Department of Child Foster Services. And I brought it home to Cherith, who had our first child at home. She was 6 months old. And I told her that we were interested in that, or I was interested in that. And Cherith shot it down pretty quick. She said, "Hey, I am drowning with this 6-month-old here. And we're certainly not in a position to be able to bring on anything else into our home right now." And so we just kind of shelved it for a little while. And I don't know that there was a lot of thought put into it for the next decade. In 2016, we began to really kind of evaluate. By that time, we had 3 kids, and they were, I guess, 5, 10, and 12, something like that. And we began to evaluate like what we were doing with our family and what our ministry role was going to be and what just how the Lord was using us. And we had kind of run into roadblocks at church that just things weren't working in the way that we thought that they might. And so we reevaluated, like, would foster care be a possibility for us? And it began to really feel good at that time. And so we quietly began to get into the classes. We didn't tell our kids about it. We didn't tell our family about it because we weren't 100% certain. We felt like that we knew what we thought we were supposed to do, but there was just a lot of uncertainty for us. And so we just did it very quietly. And as we got into the classes, we began to see more and more that was something that we wanted to pursue.
So a couple thoughts here. First of all, timing is everything, Brandon. You really didn't do that real well, did you?
No,
at 6 with a 6-month-old.
That's the story of my life. So nothing new there.
That's funny. When she shot you down there, was that to you? Were you at a point where you were like pretty disappointed by that, or was it more like it hadn't really settled in as like we need to do this? It was more like just kind of bringing it up.
I think at that point we had only been married for maybe 2 years. And we were still getting to know each other, right? We were young. We got married. She was 21 and I was 23. So we're still kids at that point, right? And so we're just exploring, when we got engaged, I had gotten involved in mission work when I was in college. And I really thought that we were going to be full-time missionaries. And so as I asked her dad for her hand in marriage, it was, "Hey, just so you know, we're going to be headed to the mission field," right? And that never happened. And so, it was a little bit of just us trying to find our way. And so, no, I don't know that it was a huge it didn't bring sadness or anything like that. It was just kind of, okay,
Sure.
well, let's keep looking. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And then 10 years later, ish, when there was a reevaluation, who prompted that? Or was that something that kind of came up to both of you?
I think we were both searching. Like you said, we were both looking for some sort of ministry that our family could do together. We looked at, parking cars or greeting at church, and it was like, well, our kids can't really get involved with that. Children's ministry, sure, but just never really found the right fit. And I remember for me, I had gone to a baby shower for his sister, and one of her friends was there, and she was fostering a little boy. And I remember I had the thought he was adorable, and I thought, well, I could do that. And as soon as I left the baby shower, I remember, how when you know that you're either being asked to do something that you don't want to do or that really scares you. For me, I get this like nervous feeling, like, oh my goodness, I was almost panicking because immediately it was like the Lord downloaded all of the 10 years prior, how he had prepared us for this. And I knew it was what he was asking us to do, but it scared me so bad that I really was like, oh, please don't be asking me to do this. I mean, I know I said that kid was cute, but like, I don't know, So that was kind of my initial thought towards it, just having that flashback of him standing in our living room with paperwork and me having our firstborn on my hip and just, oh, Lord, really? Have you been, planting seeds for 10 years and now this is what you're asking of us? It was scary.
Yeah. Man, Cherith, I remember very similarly in my life when I heard I had a newborn also, probably around that same month, maybe 3 to 6 months, laying on my bed while I was doing laundry in my room, and I heard a story of adoption, and I remember that same pit in my stomach feeling that you kind of mentioned. And I said, no, Lord, like, please, I hope you're not telling me something. And now we can say we're so grateful. But yeah, I know that feeling all too well. And I think that probably a lot of our listeners know that. In fact, maybe someone's feeling that right this moment as we share this story. Maybe right now they're getting that calling from God and saying, oh, whoa. So what about you, Brandon?
yeah, I think, we feel like that in so many ways of our lives that we walk through open and closed doors, right? And so as in our prayer life, it is, Lord, we think that we're supposed to do this thing, but we don't know. And so if you would just open and close the doors that you want us to walk through and then close the doors that you don't want us to walk through. And
Yeah.
it has proved us well. And so, as we got prior to getting into foster care, we thought that we would get into the hospitality side of our church, and we offered different things, and for whatever reason, they just didn't work out. And so I think that we knew that we were entertainers, and we enjoyed having people in our home. So just for dinner and to spend time with other families, we still do that. That's a huge part of who we are today. And so as we began to look at that, it was like, well, we don't want to do something that is hard. Cherith mentions parking cars or, whatever that may be at the church. Like, we wanted to do something that we were already naturally good at. And we felt that on the hospitality side and on the entertaining side, that we could do that easily. Maybe easily was not the case, but it was something that we could get into and feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so, we had an extra room in our home that when we had built our home, Cherith had a monogramming business, and so she needed a bedroom at home to be able to do that monogramming. And at some point before we got into foster care, she stopped doing that business and moved on to something else. And we had a spare bedroom. So, as things kind of began to align, we realized that, hey, there's some opportunity here for us to do this. And it just kind of all lined up.
Yeah. I love that, how the Lord does that. It can feel scary, but it is there. He does, the way he moves so often is you have some sort of like an interest in it or some sort of gifting, right? Where you can, just like what you're saying, or there's some sort of like pulling of like, that sounds so scary, but yet in some ways, when the time is right, like at least for me, he gave me like an excitement for like, okay, I think there's like just this passion. I don't even know if I'd say passion, but just excitement to see like, ooh, maybe we try that. And I think he's good to he leads us all in different ways. And we all, the more we walk with him, the more we know the way he speaks to us. So when you started fostering, what was the dynamic of your family, like the age of your kids at that point? Or when you started the process?
Yeah, our youngest was 5, and then we had an 8 and a 10-year-old, all girls.
Okay. So once you went through the classes, when did you like kind of let them in on it, that this is what you were exploring?
We were probably about 5 or 6 classes in out of maybe 8. We had been taking weekly date nights, and they were 3-hour date nights that, were classes. And so at probably about the 5th or 6th class, we told our girls, we asked their thoughts on it, and then we told our parents.
Okay. And so what were your girls' response?
Oh, they thought it was awesome right out the gate. They love having people in our home just as much as we do. They love little kids. Like, they thought it was great. They wanted a child tomorrow. They were on board from day one.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know that it's not always great, right? That there's a lot of hard in foster care. So let's talk about that a little bit. What was it like bringing in a child, and what was the expectation versus the reality of walking this road?
The expectation, I don't know that we really gave ourselves a whole lot of time to really try to expect. I mean, I think they teach you well in class that, things can change, and there's a lot of uncertainty in it. And we definitely experienced that. We've had 5 placements in the last 5 years. And I will say that every time another child walks through our door, I have that same pit in my stomach of like, what did I just do? And it always is fine, but it is a little bit of an adjustment at first, and it, it works itself out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question there.
Well, what would, and I guess one more, just a follow-up question to what you said there, but have the kids been long-term, like a year stint, or has it kind of been a mix of some were a little longer than others?
Right. Yeah, it's been a mix. Our first placements were 3 months. Then we had one for 5 months. Then we had one for a year and
15 months.
15 months. and the first placement, I'm sorry, was 2 little girls. So that's the 5 children.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Yeah. So what would you say has been some of the hard?
I would say, the daily hard at first can be a challenge. We always say that there's about a 3 to 4 week period in the beginning where you're getting to know the child. They usually get sick during that time because there's new germs and new environment, and maybe you've introduced them to daycare and they've never been there before. There's sleeping patterns that they have to develop. Many of them have come never really having a bedtime, which has been interesting for us because we've always given our kids a bedtime. Food is a big issue. Many of them eat anything that came in a wrapper, they would eat, but anything that we cooked or that was just natural fruit, that was so much harder for them. And so that was a huge adjustment. But it usually, kids are so resilient that usually within the first 3 to 4 weeks, they get on your routine and your schedule, and then you're good to go. It's not to say there aren't challenges after that, but that's really the practical hard, I would say.
Sure. Yeah.
It's hard on your schedule. You do have extra things to do. And then it's hard when they go home. The emotional hard. Our kids really love hard, which we're proud of for them with doing that. But it's hard on them when they go home, and they get sad and they think about them at random times, and So those things are really hard too.
Yeah. Brandon, what would you say?
Well, I mean, I think that, each child that has come through our home has been unique, and has created their own unique set of challenges. Um, we've had um, we've had just some sexual
Trauma.
things to work through. That we had a child that had
Mm-hmm.
come to us. I guess she was maybe 4 years old, and she had been touched somewhere along the line, and things were. She was kind of aware of things that a normal 4-year-old wouldn't, and that created some
Mm-hmm.
difficult dynamics. There's just been, for us, we've raised our kids since day one. And so, when you get a 3-year-old come through your home who's never met you before and been raised under a very different set of circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
there is this adjustment period. And, I think that the last little boy that was with us, he was with us for 15 months, and he stole all of our hearts, and we just loved our time with him. But I would say 2 months into him being there, we about threw our hands up because we were just completely
Mm-hmm.
exhausted, because the transition period with him was longer and more difficult. He would wake up in the middle of the night screaming, not knowing where he was. It was just, there were a lot of difficulty with that. But at some point in the process, he just really settled in, and that was easily our best placement so far. And I think each one has probably gotten better. When we had
Mm-hmm.
our first set of sisters, they came along. It was a couple of days before Christmas. And I think this year actually will be our first Christmas in 5 Christmases that we haven't had a foster kid placement. So it's been interesting, just to have
Wow.
kids during Christmas
Mm-hmm.
time. But, we had those two sisters come along, and they were 2 and 3 years old. And we just thought, this is just going to be beautiful, that we get to help keep these two sisters together. And they wore us out. And, it was just a part of it. It was something that we with each child, we kind of learned, different things that we put in place. And so we learned out of that process that we only take one child at a time. And it is certainly not our goal to see families, going in different directions. We'd love to see them in the same home. But
Sure.
for us, if we're going to be the foster care placement, we can only take one child at a time. And so, we've kind of continued to put some of those parameters in place
Yeah, that's
because
good.
we want to do this for a long time. And if we just go
Mm-hmm.
out and get burnt out in the first, couple of placements, then we're not going to do it long term. And so, as each kind of process goes along, we take a step back and we figure out, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What needs to change in the future? And, we have stuck by those guidelines, and it's been positive for us.
I think that is really, really important to hear. Especially what you said is you want to do this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to do that, you have to be healthy and it has to be sustainable. And we are limited humans. We can't do everything. But sometimes we can go the opposite where I can't do everything, so I might as well do nothing. And that's not a good solution.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
So one common resistance I would imagine to stepping into foster care as a foster parent, or one even who supports the foster care community, might be, I'm too busy. I have too much going. Do you feel like busyness is a reason not to engage?
I don't know. I think you'll be hard pressed to find people busier than us. So we've got 3 small businesses, 3 kids, and we're trying to develop a community in Mississippi right now. And so I think that we're definitely busy, but we have a joke that so I'm a home builder, and if we have a house that we can't sell, we have the joke that we need to get a foster kid because the houses all sell when we have foster kids. And while that's in jest, there has been a level of the Lord blessing our hands in our work while we've been in this foster care journey. And I
Hmm.
think that, we have kind of taken the mentality that the Lord has spoken to us that, if you will take care of, these children, then I'll
Mm,
help, in your other areas of life. And so I think
mm,
that we have seen other areas maybe get easier, as a result of us having the kids. And, I don't know what to make of that other than that we just feel like that the Lord has continued to give us that energy. But that said, we're in a season right now where our last foster placement went home, and we said, hey, we're going to take a few months off, and we set a date for how long we would be off. And we got to the end of that date, and I told Cherith, I was like, I need a little longer, right? And I'm not quite ready to have another child in our home again, because we are in a busy season. And I don't know. I think that that's okay for us. We've felt that freedom to be able to say, you know what, like I'm just today's not the day for us to take a placement. And so, as we have seen other ways that we can, be helping the foster care community in the time where we don't have a child in our home, it is that we really do feel that freedom to be able to say that we're going to take a longer break because of the season that we're in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Cherith, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think that, there's always going to be something, people say when's the best time to have a baby? Well, if you're really trying to dig, there's never the best time, right? I mean, it's for us, we're looking at God's timing, and that's always the best. But, so I think if you feel like, the Lord's called you to it, just be sensitive to his voice, and, knowing, I think for us, as we look at what our values are for our family, foster care lines up with that, right? So we have to look at the other things that are causing our life to be busy. And if those things are things that don't line up with our value, then we should probably get rid of those things, because then they are just busyness. But if we are going along and God's just got other things for us right now that do line up with our values, and the placement has not come, or the right placement has not come for our family, then we just trust that he knows better than we do. And that in this particular season that we can have the freedom, like Brandon said, to take a break. But yeah, we can all find time to be busy with lots of different things. It's just which one should we be busy with? Yeah.
I feel like having so many kids myself has actually helped me to be a better time manager, because I've had to. Like, I can't, so I think in some ways having a lot going, if it is lined up with, if it's God-led, there's ways to still make it work, but you do have to say no to something, right? You can't just go. We can't just keep filling up our lives. What would you say, this is kind of a big, broad question, so just take it where you want to go, but what has your experience with foster care taught you?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I tell people that it teaches me is that I need Jesus. And that sounds so cliche or elementary, like we all need Jesus, right? But when we have a foster placement, I need Jesus in a way that I've never needed Jesus before. Like the psalmist says, I need him like water. I long for him, for time with him, because it is very necessary to spend that time with Jesus because of the hard that's going on in our house at the moment. For me, just that closeness with the Lord that we've gained over the last 5 years, closeness with each other. It's taught us to be very dependent on Jesus, to be dependent on each other, we're in this together. We both decided to do this. And so, we lean on each other.
I think that it's taught me that, like, I've not really done anything on my own. I had parents that loved me. They took me to church. They helped me to go to a good school, and, taught me the things that I know now. And Cherith had the same experience. And then, men have come into my life, along my career, and have helped me and opened doors for me. And so as I meet some of these kids and their parents and the broken homes that they come out of, at first I took the mentality that, I didn't understand some of the things that whether it be drugs or whatever it may be that the kids were being taken out from. I kind of took a step back approach of like, hey, we'll keep your kids. You go work on the things that you're working on that you need to fix. And I think the longer that I've been in this, the more I've realized that, I've not done anything. I've just become the product that my parents raised me to be, right? And the people that have opened these doors for me have helped me to become. And unfortunately, these kids have become the product of what they were raised in. And so we've really taken a different approach than when we started, which was just taking care of the kids. And now we've begun to take a family approach and realize that, these families need a help. They need someone in their corner to be able to help them. So, the little boy that went home from us most recently, his mom had come up through foster care as well. And, when you begin to realize just some of the trauma that these parents have gone through, you begin to have grace for them and realize that, hey, if we're really going to make a difference, then we need to also make a difference in the parents' lives. And so, that's easier said than done. And we've had some failures in that, and then we've had some really big wins in that. And so, as our last little guy went home, here we are a year later, and almost a year later, and we're still involved with his family. We see him and his brothers and sister on a pretty consistent basis, and they're really doing well. And so for us to see that and see that, we didn't just focus on the little guy that was with us, we also focused on mom and brothers and sister. Then the reward is so much greater because we're getting to see them put back together and thriving, right? And so for us, our goal in getting into foster care was never adoption. Adoption may be a part in our future. We're not closed off to that, but that's never been our goal. And so to see the kids go back home and realize, you know what, we didn't just babysit that kid for a year. Like, we got to see real restoration happen and healing happen for his mom. And, as we go over there and mom's cooking dinner and, like, the house is clean and the kids are doing well, it's a beautiful sight, given where things were 2 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. You, speaking of like family and taking care of family, and even where you started with in the fact that you wanted something for your family to be involved in together, you also have a family mantra, right? And it's been tested and it's been lived out in your fostering experience. What is that mantra, and how has that, just talk more about what this has looked like in your life?
So our mantra is that we are crafts, and we do hard things and we try new things. And the try new things is generally pretty easy. It means we go to new vacation spots and we try new food, and we, aren't afraid to jump off the zip line, or I'm afraid to do some things, but that's for another podcast. But
is there going to be a craft skydiving excursion
no.
at some
Those
point?
are the things. Anything over about 8 feet, and I'm generally out. But it is that we want to try new things, right? We want to see the world. We want to experience all of the Lord's creation, and then we do hard things, right? And the hard things that we do, specifically are foster care. And foster care is easily the thing that stretches us more than anything else. But I think it's also the thing that brings our crew together more than anything else. And so, and I feel like that it's what the Lord's called us to. And so to be walking in that calling is where we want to be.
Yeah. Do the girls take a lot of ownership over that mantra too? I mean, would they say that easily to other friends and stuff, like that's well known around your house?
It is, yeah. Especially when it comes time to try new food, or to do a hard thing like put in extra hours for us something we're studying for, things like that.
Sure.
Those are things that we just keep reminding them, like, hey, no, we're crafts. We do hard things and we try new things, and they don't always love that, but in the moment, but they definitely know that as part of who we are.
Yeah, I love that. I would say one of ours is since my kids have been little, when they leave for school, is look out for the underdog and be a leader. And I've been saying that for many, many years. And I am someone who likes to invent new things. And so one day I was talking to my son, who was probably 12 at the time. And I was like, "Hey, Hudson." And I said, "Look out for and I had somehow made up a new, like, he goes underdog. I'm like, "No, the one who's struggling." And then he's like, and I'm like, "And Bia," and he's like, "Leader." I'm like, "No." And I started to like give him a new, and he's like, "Mom, we've been doing this for 12 years. We're not going to change it now." So I appreciated that. Okay. So I think you guys and I think we together share a passion to help others fully live the life that God created them to live. I specifically love the verse Ephesians 2:10 that says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." As we close out today, our time, how would you encourage our listeners to find their unique purpose, whether that be individually or as a family?
I think the giftings that God has given us have been put there for a purpose, just like Brandon shared that, we've been equipped and we feel really called to hospitality and hosting those in our home. And I think just looking towards what it is that he's naturally gifted us towards and bent us towards. And then asking him to show us where it is that he would like to use us in that way, because those gifts or talents that we may have are for his glory.
I think, as we talked a little bit together before we got on this call with you, we talked about who your listener might be, and I think that I'm sure there are listeners out there that have some sort of bend towards foster care, but just haven't known whether they're supposed to be involved or not. And I think that foster care and the Forgotten Initiative is just a very selfless thing. There's not a lot of back patting that happens with that. There's not a lot of glory that comes with it. And so I think that for your listeners that are listening to this and deciding whether or not to jump into this in some way, I think that it's not something that you're naturally going to be drawn to. I think it's something that that there's a bit of a calling on your life if you have some interest in this. And so I think that for me, like I don't like other people's kids, right? So if you asked me to keep your kids for the weekend, like I don't really want to do that. And so I think that being able to have a child come live with us for a year and the Lord makes space in my heart for that child, like that is the Lord, right? Like there is nothing in me that wants to keep other people's kids. And so, but yet but foster care feels completely different to me than that. And so I don't know. I think that is how I continue to come back to realize that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because here I'm doing this thing that I am not bent towards at all. And yet the Lord has given me that grace and that room in my life to be able to be involved in this.
That's really beautiful. Well, you guys, I have very much enjoyed our time together, and I want to thank you for being on, and thank you for just being crafts who do hard things and who try new things.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Jamie.
Well, I hope today's episode was an encouragement to you wherever you are on this foster care journey. Now, we want you to stay connected, so be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Also, we have a ton of great content for you over at theforgotteninitiative.org. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time.